So, self-defense wise, had some requests. People have been asking about it for a little bit, and something I recently taught the SBG camp. And if you do jiu-jitsu, to some extent, unless again, you're just practicing pure sport application, you're always already doing self-defense, unless you're doing a lot of reliance on grips and spinning upside down and playing sitting up guard all the time. Everybody in here is pretty able to handle themselves after a little bit. But still, there are a couple things that you have to understand that you probably heard before. One is, if you have great ground jiu-jitsu, but you have absolutely no ability to get in on somebody who's aggressively trying to hit you without getting hit, or potentially, flinch response kicks in or getting knocked out. If you don't have the confidence to be able to do that against a really aggressive live wire opponent, then your jiu-jitsu may never get a chance to work. By the same token, if you can't actually take them down, because you have absolutely no takedown ability, then your jiu-jitsu may not get a chance to work. And that being said as well, a lot of jiu-jitsu is resolved on the feet. So the self-defense jiu-jitsu is really, about half of it takes place on the feet in terms of restraint, control and restraint, and sometimes finishing somebody. It doesn't even go to the ground. As you know, we have more skill set on the ground versus most judo, which is kind of flip-flop. They do less newaza ground technique and more stand-up. But in a self-defense situation, a lot of times the ground is a more vulnerable position if it's not just you one-on-one against somebody who is not as skilled as you, right? Or if there's weapons, if there's multiple people, so on and so forth. You guys kind of have heard that before. So what I want to do first of all, everything we're going to talk about in terms of self-defense right now isn't going to go into this month so much of the offense. We'll talk about some submissions and things like that, but we're going to focus mostly on survival, on defense. So getting to a position of advantage first. I'm also not going to spend a lot of time on like personal grabs type of thing, like somebody grabs me here and I can do this wrist lock or this arm lock or something. Even though there's a whole curriculum there, I'm kind of going on bigger picture stuff, kind of taking the self-defense aspects of like Valley Tudo type of application and bringing it in. So big picture, and we'll start on the feet. Throughout the month, we'll move on to the ground, okay, and talk about common situations. Have you guys actually drill it live, so it's not just, okay, here's a move. This is the thing that always bothered me before, Dave, if I grab you, is there's a curriculum where it's like, okay, somebody comes in and they grab you, and nobody grabs you like that. That never happens for the most part. If somebody does that, it means they're not really committed. If somebody people can be, people can employ subterfuge, like they can sucker you and things like that. They can pretend like they're not going to be aggressive. They're like passive aggressive, and then all of a sudden they're on you, right? It's like all of a sudden somebody's in your face, and then they come in. But people don't just like grab statically. If somebody's grabbing you, it's typically like, it's very violent once that happens, and it's on, and it's at the very least, it's an aggressive shoving match, and often followed up with punches and things like that. So I don't like these static types of things. We want to be able to make it functional. So the first thing at the camp I went over is for us thinking about the types of situations where you start on the feet for self-defense. And there's a lot, if we want to be granular, really get specific, there's a lot of scenarios that can happen that if you are law enforcement or security personnel or something, we want to prepare for. But basically what I did was distilled it down into a couple broad areas, okay? And one is the situation that's sort of like, again, that kind of aggressive / passive aggressive thing where somebody's coming up to you or somebody's confronted you, and this could be in the the cliche like the bar, it could be a crowd or something, or it could just be somebody walking up to you that you're like, hey, I don't recognize that guy, but they're walking into my space, and you're kind of not sure if they're friend or foe, and maybe the alarms go up, the hair on the back of your neck kind of comes up a little bit, but you're not really sure. Or it could just be for sure somebody's like talking at you aggressively, and you think you start to feel the butterflies in the dump, and you think there might be a fight. right? So how do you protect yourself in that situation? And this, a lot of times, is going to be with somebody who has gotten kind of close to you already, and you're not sure if it's going to kick off. Second area is somebody who's like basically said, I'm going to fight you, and it's on. And this is like a new world that I talk about. So the second area is what I call the world star area, right? Because all you need to do, like, it didn't used to really be like this very much. There was like trained guys and there was untrained guys. You know, the closest you get is like savvy street fighters who, you know, knew to keep their hands up, and they, you know, they could fight, they could scrap, but they weren't like skilled, they weren't technically skilled. But now, with mass media and, you know, YouTube and the UFC and its rise, I mean, there are kids, you know, like high school age kids who you see in these autoplay Facebook videos doing World Star now, who when they go to, you know, do the fight in the street or in the after school or something like that, like, I don't think a lot of these kids are training, but yet they like take their shirt off and they're like this, like they're moving their head, they got their hands up, they're throwing leg kicks. It's like a different animal, you know, like they're young and athletic enough and maybe fooling around their friends enough to at least look dangerous, even if once they start to exchange, they, you know, let their head come out of the pocket. But like, they're knocking each other out, and they're not just the type that's just going to go like wide, crazy sucker punch, right? So you have to deal with that. So we've got the more traditional situation, and then we've got the new order type of world star situation. I want to address both, okay? So first one, Pete, can you grab me? I was going to say that Pete is coming up to me, right? And again, maybe he's already talking at me, like we've got a problem. And of course, in any of these situations, you guys know it's not about ego, it's about doing what you need to do to go home. Because the person that you're sizing up and you're saying, dude, this guy better not come up to me because I'm going to knock him out, right? Or I'm going to choke him out, or I'm going to break his arm off or something. Could come up to you and all of a sudden you realize there's an edge weapon and the whole thing changes, right? So we don't want to be a hero, okay? If we can exit the situation, we're better to exit the situation, right? So that's my public service announcement. Now we're saying, like, somebody's coming up to you, maybe they're talking at you, but you're in a situation where you kind of have to deal with it. And we could go on and on why that would be, right? So the first thing is, and Henry's just here, he did a video where he kind of talked about this hand position, and it's the one that you should have, right? For law enforcement, I changed this a little bit, so they're going to use verbal commands. They do not want you in their space, and they're going to give you verbal commands, and they may take something that looks more like a passive but very passive but authoritative like fight stance. So they're not going to go like this, but they may take what we call like interview stance. So their hands are already staggered. They're up like this to show I don't want a fight, but they're going to be like, hey, you know, and if you get too close, they may reach for something on, you know, they're going to tase you or potentially reach for their firearm, so on and so forth. But for us, it's going to be more like this, like a little less here, unless I really know somebody's coming up a threat, like they've already, you know, picked up a bottle or something. I know they're going to try and crack it over my head, right? In that case, I have no problem kind of going into something that, even if I'm still trying to talk my way out of it, I don't mind looking a little more aggressive. But this type of situation, all of a sudden, you know, you're in a crowd and somebody's already there, right? So I'm just here, okay? Just like this. So my hands are up. And one of the skill sets you start to develop when you deal with these situations is, number one, even if you're not naturally somebody who talks with their hands, you start to learn to talk with your hands like this, okay? Because anything I'm going to do moving forward is going to be kind of disguised naturally by the fact that I have my hands up. So to make this look natural, I'm going to be like, talk with my hands guy. Hey, how's it going? Hey, what's up, man? Everything good? It's not threatening, right? And my palms are out, not my knuckles. So this allows me to do that. The other thing is I'm going to just ever so slightly coast offline, right? So right now, Pete and I are completely lined up, center line, the center line, as they call it. So as he's coming up to me, I'll be like, hey dude, what's up? Like, I'm just going to move slightly offline. So I can still talk to him, we're good, but there's just a slight adjustment here where I know that I am lined up with him here, or I'm lined up with him here. And this can be very minute and very subtle, but it's enough, right? So at this point, if he wanted to push me, if he wanted to hit me, anything like that, I'm lined up here where I can intercept that because I have the box of his body, right, from shoulder to shoulder, arm to arm lined up. And if he's one of these guys, it's kind of rare. Most people don't do this, but he was just going to like go grab me and throw a knee or something like that. I'm already a little bit offline, and I'm cued into that as well with my peripheral vision. But mostly you're going to get the people who are going to grab you, shove you, they're going to hit you if they go violent. So as we come in, you guys remember this, I'm going to have Pete just reach like he's going to give me a barrel. That kind of run through. Good. Now, this position, if he comes into me and I stay on my heels, go ahead, he runs me over, that's it. Now I'm falling off balance and we're going to be in a full-on scrap, right? And Pete and I are about the same weight. He's a little bit shorter than me. But imagine, he's 250. Imagine he's 300. Now he's going to completely run me over, and I will be on my back, and I'll be forced to deal with the situation at that point, which is not desirable. Okay, this time, okay, as he comes into me, okay, from here, I'm just slightly transferring my weight onto the balls of my feet, okay? So as he's pushing into me, okay, see from here, what happened? What was the change? See?
Your wheel is forward, so it's hard for me to
right over. Now I don't need to do this. Okay, as Pete comes in, I don't need to do this, because now we're full out wrestling. What if he's just drunk? What if he's just one of these guys that's like, yeah, he's just a little obnoxious, but he's not like trying to, like it's not an assault. Maybe he wants to just, I want to wrestle with you, and the next thing you know, the guy's trying to give you a kiss on the head, right? Like, you don't know, so I don't want to just be full out like, okay, now I'm wrestling this guy, we have a big scene, okay? So it's just this slight shift, okay? Pushing into me, weight on my heels, go. Right? I go back. Okay, now I'm here, pushing into me. Good. Weight on the balls of my feet. Good. So I can match him very easily just by slightly rocking my weight forward. I don't even need to really have my heels come off the mat. If they do, it'll be ever so slight, but it's just this, okay? And if I'm slightly offline, okay, even better, because if I wanted to, I can easily unbalance him if I wanted to disengage and then head for the door. Does that make sense? So that's the first thing I want you guys to do. So your partner's going to kind of come up to you, like, hey, and I want you to just, so kind of come up, but don't do anything yet. So I want you to just kind of do like, just have fun with it, like, hey Pete, how you doing? Okay. Yeah, don't touch yet. Don't touch. Just kind of come up. Hey Pete, how you doing? What's up, buddy? Like, talking my hands. All of a sudden he goes for me.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Right? And I just slightly move in. So come in. Now, if all of a sudden he backed off, okay, here I have the opportunity to go with him. I don't want to just go like this. Okay, all of a sudden back off, and I fall over. Okay, so this is where we get into pressure, making an attachment to your partner that's based on pressure, which also gives you tactile sensitivity, gives you feel. And this is where you can start to really control range and make even a much bigger, heavier, stronger opponent feel like they just kind of ran into a wall, but it's not this type of a wall, right? Like you trying to push them back. It's just, now I'm connected to you and I transfer my weight and you're like, wait a second, and now I can kind of gauge what I need to do based on the scenario. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So I want you guys to take a few minutes, just role play this back and forth a little bit. We don't need to do all the verbal stuff right now. Just talk to each other, like have fun a little bit with that part of it. But I want you to come up, okay? And then my partner's starting to get used to talking with the hands. Good. But I want your hands up.
You want me to do it?
Yeah. So hands are
guy.
up. Right. Now I'm the drunk guy.
Oh, you're the drunk guy?
I'm the drunk guy now. Yeah, right? They kind of come in and just kind of feel that stopping power that you have just with that little shift, but you always have the inside position dominating. Got it? All right, so everybody felt that stopping pressure, right? Okay, so that again is a situation where somebody's close in. Now, ideally, I don't really want to just let somebody inside my personal space, okay? But again, there are scenarios where if you're, say, already in a crowd, like you could just all of a sudden turn and somebody's already close to you. Okay, it's not always this wide open, you know, the parking lot or the big field situation where people talk about, I never let anybody get close to me. Like, everybody's in social situations where all of a sudden somebody's close to you. Then you got to deal with that. If they are being aggressive, or even if you think that they might switch it on and turn aggressive. And again, you also may have certain jobs that you do where you're required to be in close proximity to people. Okay, so these are the types of situations. And also there's the stranger approaching you who you're not sure, you know, maybe they're just a close talker, right? But maybe they're, you know, potential problem too. You just don't know if somebody's being friendly or if they're being weird, you know. You may have the bells go up, and a lot of times we need to trust our instincts, but you're not quite sure yet, so you err on the side of caution. You're not going to be overly aggressive, but you're also always ready. Okay? So that's kind of like passive-aggressive scenario A. B is somebody's coming up to you and you're kind of doing this like, hey man, what's up? You know, like, kind of like, hey, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, they start talking to you and they do come at you to grab you, to hit you. Now, anytime that happens, distance management states, if I have enough space to retreat, I retreat. But if they're kind of overtaking me, then I go all the way in. Where we don't want to be is in the middle zone, right? And that's going to be the same on the ground, but on the feet we have more choices. So statistically even, time and time again, you know, if you look at scenarios, the #1 biggest determination of success in self-protection is distance from the situation. That's why you stand the best chances of never having a violent act by avoiding scenarios where violent acts are likely to occur. Of course, sometimes these things cross your path and there's nothing you can do about it. But even when there is somebody, you know, that's why they say, you know, cross the street or get away from them or whatever, like, you know, trust your instincts. Don't be where somebody who you think might be a potential threat is. And the more distance you have, the more time you have to think, the more awareness can kick in, and you can, you know, view your exit signs and all that stuff, and you know kind of like what I can do. I can pick something up, I can go that way, I can yell to somebody, but you have options. Okay, now somebody's coming up and they're taking the distance away, and all of a sudden you realize, oh, they are a threat. Now, kind of classically, ready again? We'll do the cover and crash, and a lot of you guys have seen this before from the foundations class. So the basic idea between cover and crash goes back to the old Bruce Lee. Okay, when he contracts, I expand. When he expands, I contract. So when he expands, right, when he gets wide, like starts to go for the, I'm going to grab you, okay, I'm going to give you a big sucker punch, something like that. When he expands, I contract. So I'm going to make myself small. What I'm actually going to do from here is come in, I keep my eyes open, and that's a discipline in and of itself because there's a natural flinch response to move away from the aggression, but that actually makes it so you're blind for a second and possibly even moving into where my posture is broken, and I'll be more likely to be on the receiving end of that punch coming, right? Or he'll be more likely to grab me and kind of be able to take me off balance. So much better if I'm here, right? Like think I got to guard somebody in basketball, or I'm ready to you know, start a wrestling match with somebody. So that kind of like lower base athletic posture. So from here, I would drop into that. I put my hands on my head. Okay, my arms are together like this, so I'm just kind of peeking through that space, so it's hard for anything to get through there and do me damage. And as he's coming to me, I come to him. Same idea as like a wrestling shot. You know, when somebody's like coming towards you, okay, you kind of draw him in, you go underneath them, so you get the opposing forces coming together. And in this case, okay, as soon as he goes wide, I make myself small and I go into him with the intention of not coming out of this shell until my forearms and elbow touch him, okay? And I want to think kind of go through him even to make sure that I don't just go to him and stop, because he's going to be a live wire. He may be backing up a little bit, and if I stop, that's where I could get into trouble. So I want to make sure when I commit to closing that distance, we meet and I get myself inside his arms so I can get to the clinch, okay? So from here, okay, I'm doing this type of thing, and the moment I see like, okay, He goes for me. I come in, and I want to drive through him. And I only let my arms come out, okay, and find the path into the clinch once I've made contact. And what you'll notice is, I'm going to get a bad rip. What you notice is, can I grab it real quick? That you'll move him a little bit, or if he's like a juggernaut, like a huge person, even if you can't move him back, you'll at least cut an angle kind of off to the side around him, right? So again, if you're kind of just approaching me, and I'm doing this, and all of a sudden I see you guys. Okay, so I move through him. I don't come out of the shell until I make contact. In the case that I can't just drive miles like straight back, notice I just cut off to the side, which is a little bit positionally better for me anyway, so I'm not straight on. Does that make sense? So that's the next thing we're going to do. Also, structurally, make sure keep your chin tucked, your eyes on your opponent, and your hands actually on your head. Because this means that if he hits this, okay, not only is it easy for a fist to come around and crack me, but also I wind up hitting myself, right? When I do this, I can take a huge shot because I'm using my skeletal structure to basically put a helmet on, right? You can take a big shot in there and just come through it until you make contact. So let's go ahead and try that. Okay. Yeah.
No.
All right, any questions so far? That's okay. So main thing is, like right now, nobody has mouthpieces in, and we don't have gloves. It's possible to continue to add resistance to this up until the point where, we do have a little hand protection. We do have, mouthpiece in just in case there's an accident. But there really shouldn't be once you start to get the timing. And then one of the things that did come up, though, that Will was asking about, so let me just address this real quick, is he's kind of asking, if you're doing this position and you start to come in, what if they threw an uppercut? The thing is, again, distance management and what type of aggression we're talking about, right? Somebody's coming up to you, either they're already up to you or they're coming up to you, you're not sure what the deal is, so you're still kind of doing this type of thing, and then all of a sudden it sparks off with that aggressive move, the grab, the sucker punch, what have you, and you get small and you drive through them and you cover and crash and make contact with the body and get into the clinch, right? There's no that type of aggression, there's no technical uppercut after that. After the first one, you should be driving through and you're in. That being said, when you're dealing with a live wire situation, as you're coming in, it's not always just going to be this perfect, I'm into the body with no problems and now I'm, looking to take them down type of thing. I mean, they may be grabbing you and keeping their balance a little bit as you jockey for position. You keep the forward pressure on. You keep trying to look for the good position to get into the solid clinch so you can then work on taking them down. But you get in safe where, at the most you get rabbit punches. They may be strong. They may be big. They may have good balance. They may be rabbit punching you. Or maybe you mistimed it a little bit. And as you're trying to come in, you wind up tangled up a little bit. In that case, you can disengage and come back again, but now we're going to kind of go to the next phase at that point, which is the world star scenario, right? Because now you're in a fight. Now it's either I book it or I've got to deal with this person if they come back in again. But it's not an unknown thing. I'm not just doing this anymore at that point. Now we know we're in a fight, right? So does that make sense to everybody? Yeah. Right. So now let's get into the second scenario, because we just had scenario A and B. One is where I just am here and then I intercept. Okay. But somebody's actually kind of come up to me, and now if it turns a little aggressive, it's at that level. The second one is they come up to me and then they start talking, they violently kicks off, and now I cover and crash because they're kind of coming in wide so I can make myself small, right? It's still all part of one world, right? It's this guy. Now the next one's World Star. Okay, do you feel good enough to?
Oh, I'm so
okay, come in. All right. So you've got the person who's basically giving you an MMA stance. In all this, the cover and crash, everything, and what I'm about to show you is an alternative to what will still work against a lot of people, that hasn't changed, which is like the old Gracie method of, I'm going to kind of do this, and they keep their head way back out of dodge, and they basically use their lead arm as a feeler. So once they start to feel you make that connection, okay, with that lead hand space, that's when they're going to come in. Okay, and you'll see like this kick, which is actually a pretty safe kick. It's also meant to be a distractor and a distancer, and then they come in. But the thing is, the early days that we saw with the Gracies, they had pretty terrible takedowns. Wrestling came in and changed that a lot, right? Much superior in terms of takedowns. But these guys would come in, they wouldn't know the deal, and that a lot of untrained people that might take a swing at you don't know the deal either, and you may still be able to do this, but I just don't like my head hanging out here in this point where you go like that, right? It's the helmet, the cover and crash is safer, but it's also, remember, when he expands, that's when I contract. So if he doesn't really expand, if he kind of stays like this, even if he's throwing kind of bad punches, that's even like it's in the family of looking technical, and they're more able to kind of counter you coming in, and they have like a little bit of footwork mobility because they're kind of doing boxing or kickboxing-esque footwork, right? It's just a different animal. It's a more athletic, dangerous animal, typically speaking. So in this case, I'm going to change my tactics a little bit, and instead of this or this at this point, I'm going to go into posture that we take. It's really like you use all the time in Muay Thai, okay? And we've adapted this successfully for self-defense, for MMA. And this is what I teach now that works very well. So basically, if I have my hands, this is cover and crash. This is like a boxing or kickboxing position. You guys are going to come straight out from here like this. Okay, so my hands are open. They're staggered, and they're lined up, okay, not here, which would still open up the middle, but down here, right? So anybody who wants to come around has to throw wide. As soon as I see the wide come, if they're close enough, like if they commit, I go back, yeah, I go back, exactly. It's an expansion, I go back to, I contract, I go to helmet and crash, cover and crash. But if they want to kind of play this game, I'm going to show you how we're going to bridge that distance and come in safely and basically envelop their arms so that they can't hit you with them, and then you go into the clinch, okay? So I basically start to come in a good base like this, so whichever is your natural stance, whichever is your lead, you get comfortable coming in. So notice my elbows aren't way out, okay? I'm just here, my chin's always down, just in case something does come by, and my hands are kind of covering the middle. So it's like you have these little pincers here. So I'm kind of coming in like this, and I'm going to stalk them down to the point that they have to make a choice. I'm either going to overtake them and cover their hands, okay, so they can't hit me, I make the attachment, or they're going to go wide. And once they go wide, to get around this long frame I have down the middle, I cover and crash. Okay, so P comes in. Okay, so all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I got to deal with World Star, right? So from here, okay, I'm coming in like this. He may throw a couple shots in there, right, like this. So I come in, and you notice if we do this slow, what's happening? Okay, from here, I'm safe, and I cover. Now, right at this moment, when I cover his hands, okay, the only way he can hit me, so we just like freeze the camera for a second here, the only way he can hit me is if I stay here and he detaches and pulls back, okay, and then disengages and starts to hit, right? Okay, again, do it. Boom, boom, right? Once I come here, like this, okay, he wants to get rid of his arms, okay, and now he gives me the body. So I continue to come in. But as much as he wants to stay like this and he wants to try and hit me, I just apply pressure and I don't let him. Once I make contact here, it's like I have hooks that cover, and now I'm not letting it go. Okay? Now, in MMA, this is where we may employ some attached striking, but for the purposes of just self-defense right now, I'm not trying to spend all the years to be an adept striker. Okay, now I'm just looking to come in and get that next position. Okay? So I want you guys to try that. So make sure you're kind of giving that kind of world star thing. Don't go hard right now because nobody's wearing gloves. I don't want anybody to get cracked with the knuckles, but kind of show that. And I want you guys to just come here and trust this position. So you're kind of stalking them down. Okay, if they come at you, okay, you cover the middle, you stalk them down, and then you look for that one little moment, boom, to come in. And as the feeder right now, you guys aren't opening up yet. We're going to do that next. Then we'll tie everything together. So right now you're kind of just doing this and throwing kind of straight stuff down the middle. Make sense? Okay, let's do it. Okay. So now, question? No, just stretching the pythons. So now we're doing this. Okay, so they're kind of lined up in the middle. They're mobile. So I'm stalking them down, taking the space away. Anything coming down the middle, this is designed to intercept. So if they stay kind of in the middle doing this type of thing, trying to look like, you know, Joe Boxer, I'm going to come in and wait for my moment, and then, boom, I basically use the fact that they have something that looks technical, whether it is or not, which is a guard, against them. Okay, so I come in and I make the motion to go from here to here, hook, and then forward pressure to make sure that they can't disengage and start to get back in the game. And from here, the pummel, just like if you guys do the, for a second, this swim motion, in wrestling compared to for pummeling, okay, it's the same type of thing. So it's very easy from here when I apply forward pressure to just dig underneath, okay, and go to that position. All right. Miles, can I grab you again? Yep. Switch up. Brand spanking new blue belt.
That's it.
All right. So now things aren't always linear, just one way. Okay. He could start off looking all world star, but then under pressure he goes wide, right? As soon as like I get into range, now he goes like this. So that's not the time for me to try and, oh, let me hook your, right, I'm going to get cracked. So as soon as I see him go wide, I go back to cover and crash. Okay? So just go this way a little bit. Okay, like this. Yeah, I'm doing this. Good. As soon as he goes wide, I'm back in again. All right? So we're just back to that same thing. So the biggest part is not go slow in the beginning and then we can build up the speed. But the biggest part isn't really like the technique of it, because that's fairly simple, right? Going from here to here, pummeling in, or from here to here. Once you get that down, ratchet that up a little bit, it's a fairly simple technique. So what you really find is just the awareness of trusting your posture and your defense. The last thing you want to do in these situations is get too concerned with like the fist. Okay? Start watching that. It's like in the beginning when you're trying to play, you know, baseball or something like that, or softball, and you start watching like somebody do that, and you go up, and you get hit in the face, right? What do they tell you to do? Okay, tell you to just keep your eye on the ball, right? So the person just doing that is kind of like watching the fist. Me keeping an eye on the ball isn't actually the fist in this case. The hand-eye coordination comes from me just kind of seeing where the threat is emerging from. So I know, like, wide, I go in, cover and crash. Okay, kind of down the middle, I'm going to smother it. Make sense? So once you get comfortable with that and you trust your posture, this slight little posture change and get the timing to do that, then as soon as somebody does this, it's going to be just the, it's only going to be a factor of dealing with the aggression itself and the physiological response you have to that. It's not going to be the skill set. Once you make contact, as freaked out as you may be that, oh my God, I'm in a fight right now, it's on and you're going to do your thing, right? Because at the end of the day, it's just a body, okay? Even if you have butterflies and all this stuff, if you have a trained response, it's just a body. You're going to go in and then you're going to be like, okay, I got this. Make sense? All right, so let's just play those scenarios out and do a little bit of both. Okay, so I want to see a little bit of you coming in here, and then I want to see, start off slow in the beginning, and then I want to see your partner kind of giving you this a little bit, and then all of a sudden they go wide as you start to close the distance, and they kind of panic a little bit. They try and get around those long frames, and then you cover and crash. Good?
One.
Just this one. So, do a very brief review of last week, and then we'll get caught up. So I talked a bit about the whole self-defense philosophy as it relates to jiu-jitsu and what we're going to focus on for the month. But in a quick summary, we're talking about not so much all the different self-defense, like somebody grabs you and you know, wrist lock them or something like that. We're going more broad spectrum, kind of taking more of an idea of like if you took the skill sets of MMA, somebody's trying to hit you, somebody's trying to grapple you, and we use jiu-jitsu for the non-striker. We're going kind of broad spectrum, but very functional. And the skill sets don't really differentiate from sport to self-defense. What works, but obviously the considerations that you have are different. So we talked about there's so many different discrete scenarios, as you guys can imagine, or maybe in some cases of experience, that you see you know, a violent encounter happen. There's a broad spectrum. There are many different situations depending on physical environment, the personalities involved, and all that stuff. But to break it down into a couple broad categories, we have the person who is sort of coming up to you, or maybe you're in a crowd, so by the time you realize that there may be a problem, they're already there, right? You didn't have a chance to sort of create the distance management that you'd like to. And they may either be talking at you, so you know that something might be going down, or they may be passive aggressive, you're not really sure what their intentions are, but they're close to you, and now all of a sudden they make a move to grab you, to hit you, and we have that scenario, okay? And then the other body of scenarios, broadly describing as the world star hip hop phenomenon, which is all you need to do is turn on World Star nowadays, and you see that people don't just fight like this anymore, right? In the wake of UFC, even untrained people are emulating fighters, and they're squaring off like this and leg kicking and doing double legs and throwing straight jabs and things like that. So they may not be highly skilled, but at least it's very different trying to close the distance and get in on that type of a aggressor than it is somebody who just comes up and tries to manhandle you, right? So those are the couple situations. And last time we talked about basically dealing with the person who's up on you first. So if I grab John real quick. I think I showed the side view before, so let me hitch that this way. So this is the center line of the body, and I want to get into that talking my hands thing we were just talking about, right? So, you know, it's rare. Most people associate, if they want to do something to you, they usually associate with where your personality resides. Like if there's anger or there's intention, it's usually directed at your face. Okay, so a lot of times people are going to try and go at you to either grab you or hit you in the face, right? This is the classic sucker punch or tackle scenario. However, there are people a little more savvy that may sucker punch you to the body or throw a knee to your groin or something like that. So it's good, even if you're not convinced that you're in a fight yet, you have your hands up between you and you're kind of scoping out this box so you know that you at any point can be inside and have control of the body. But I do like to get offline, and it's much more discreet than getting into a stance. But I can at least be talking to somebody and I can be kind of veering offline as I'm talking to them, and then I'm all lined up in case it goes down, that I can have that inside position and I can transfer my weight forward and stop them or redirect them. And hopefully that can be resolved at that level without getting into further conflict. But if you need to, you know, if you were a striker, you'd have the ability to strike them as well as clinch. For all of us right now, we're assuming we're a group of non-strikers, and that's not an option. So we'd use jiu-jitsu. We'd either get to a dominant position, maybe, you know, apply a choke standing, which is even better because then you don't have to go to the ground. We take them down, hopefully in dominant position, have a conversation. Okay, and the second body is the world star. Okay, where we have somebody who's actually, you know, looking like a fighter. They have their hands up and everything, and now I'm basically going to extend my frames up the middle and make sure that my distance is such that if he tries to throw anything up the middle, okay, that I have this controlled. And then what I'm looking to do, as long as he wants to keep his dukes up, kind of in that middle space, I pick my moment, and I come in and I cover. Now I'm attached to him. Now, if I stood static, he could pull back and hit me, right? He could disengage. But once I'm here, I'm either going to just continue forward and swim into my clinch, or I'm going to apply forward pressure if he does try and pull out, okay, so that I stay tracking his arms and he cannot hurt me. And if I do manipulate his body a little bit, then that takes away like knees and things too, because he's got to be engaging his balance. You can't be kicking somebody or kneeing somebody and be trying to catch your balance at the same time, right? So that would be where I go. And then at any moment that he becomes the brawler and he goes wide to grab me or to hit me, then we turn this into cover and crash, okay, where I close up the middle, put my helmet on, attach my hands to my head so I can absorb impact, and I don't stop until I get to full clinch, okay? So I know we went over that last time, but let's just do a quick review of those scenarios with your partners, starting off super light and slow, and then you can build it up a little bit, make sure everybody's kind of caught up, and then we'll go proceeding tonight into resolving the clinch into the takedown if that's where we want to take it. Okay? Let's go. Now we're going to go into, once we have the clinch, trying to capitalize on it. If we do want to bring everything down to the floor, then we need to be able to do that. As I mentioned last time, all your jiu-jitsu for self-defense will be meaningless if you can't attain the clinch over an aggressive opponent who's trying to use their physical attributes to do damage to you, right? Like if you can't get past like somebody aggressively trying to strike you, then you won't be able to get your game going. And also if you have the clinch and you can't get it to the ground, if that's where you feel like you're going to have the best advantage, then it's never going to happen, right? So we have to make sure we can take it down. So again, I want to work within really broad parameters. Painting with a broad brush, if he goes wide, that's my best chance to get a body lock or double underhooks. When he's more in World Star zone, like with more of a kind of a boxing-esque type of position, and I have to come in and cover and come from the inside, I can get double unders, especially if he opens up at all, as this is happening, which is common, especially with untrained people. But it's much more common that I'll have an over-under. But at any point, I may wind up with an over-under situation. So I want to be able to deal with both. Okay. Either I get double unders, awesome, or over-under. Okay. So first, let's just go into as we're doing this, he comes wide, I helmet and crash, okay, and I come around. Now, if he's that high with his arm, you guys also know that at any point you can bump him forward and you can come here. Okay? So I come around to the back. That's great, because if I position myself correctly, it's going to be hard for him to hurt me. So when I do that, okay, first thing is try never to be way forward like this. I want to think, not really a wrestling shot, it's easier than that, but I do change my level. As I come in, I make contact, I drive into him, and then I cut my angle. If I go around to the back, okay, what happens here, even though my posture isn't terrible, but a lot of times people here instinctively will just headlock. So hopefully before he totally locks in and I have to do a headlock escape, what I do is I feel him clamping this on. I just bump him forward. Okay, so I drive like I'm throwing a punch, and I pop him with whatever shoulder to move him forward. And you can't do both things at once, okay? So he can't like lock you and kind of catch his balance. So that simple tweak will eliminate headlocks all the time, okay, as soon as that's coming. In here, good. Awesome. Now, as soon as I pop past the headlock, you see that I pull him back in. What I'm going to do is turn my head either this way or this way, but keep it centered in between the shoulder blades, so just in case he goes like this, I don't get caught with an elbow. Okay, sometimes it'd be like this, I got it, right? You get clipped. So I bury this, and the other thing I want to do is line my feet up with his feet. Because if I do this, you don't have to know Sambo for somebody to look down, trying to keep their balance and go, oh, grab the leg and pull up on it, in which case they're not going to knee bar you in most cases, but they may take you down. And also there's the old boom, like, could happen, right? Somebody throwing a heel up the middle and catches you. So I just want to be lined up and know where his legs are, okay? Now, I've shown this before, but it's been a little bit. There's the classic jiu-jitsu trip, but bar none, my favorite one because of the positional integrity is the hip block. So what I'm going to do from here is just step back with this leg. I want you to see exactly where Kev's hips articulates where his femur inserts into the hip. Okay, so I move back. Okay, see right where it is? So to do the hip block, I don't have to change my hands at all. Okay, I've got a gable grip here. I'm all centered, lined up. So all I'm going to do is pull my forearm around, and you'll notice that whichever side I go to hip block is the side that I have my palm up and my elbow in. Mechanically stronger than this, right? So you'll notice that if I'm here, I'll switch my head and I'll bring this in. And I only need to be slightly below that hinge for this to work. Okay, I don't need to all of a sudden drop way down here or anything. I just pull that in, and once I connect my elbow to my rib cage, it doesn't move, all right? So watch the difference here on the first one where I'm going to make a mistake. Okay, just try and keep the balance. Okay. So I attain the position, and now I lose it as I try and pull him down. I created separation between us. From here, once I do this little shift, I'm just slightly below that hinge. Now as I take him down, I don't create any distance here. I stay attached to him. And now if you see where we're at, I still have my head position so I can't get hit. I have weight on him, so I'm kind of using my weight to kind of keep him pinned to the ground. And I can do this, and I can actually come up and be talking to him. Or if he goes to try and stand up and base, I can just pull him back here, and I can keep pressure. And there's nothing he can really do to me at this point. We can talk. Okay, I could look for a gift wrap or something like this, and now we have a conversation, but I have many options. I could exit the situation, or I could start grappling with him. I could do all these different things, and obviously I could hit him too. But this keeps me very, very safe in here in this position. Just one more time on the way through. Come around to the back. Now I have it on this side. Okay, so I'm gable gripped in the front. I pull this around here, attach my elbow to my rib cage. Forearm is slightly below his hip. And now from here, without creating any separation here, I take a step back on this leg and I think straight down. Okay? I'm sinking my weight directly into that space. And now weight pressure on him, and I stay in this safe position. And then you decide what you're going to do next. Okay, good? Do one more thing if you happen to cycle around to the back while this is fresh in my mind, because these things don't go on a playbook. There's always a little variation. You say, why isn't this working? Okay, variation being, let's say you come around to my back. So Kev starts to do this, and all of a sudden the opponent does something like this. Okay, you don't have to be trained. You don't have to have played football or wrestled or something to do things like this. It's just natural, like heat of the moment type of thing as people try and keep their balance, fighting. So all of a sudden the ability to bring them backwards may become a fight, especially if they have body mass and weight on them, okay? So now, what do we do if somebody does that? If it's this way real quick. So I come around, same exact scenario. Now, this looks ridiculously easy, but this is because he's pitched his weight forward. And I've never had this fail. We do this in class, or when we're doing stand-up and stuff, I happen to get the back, and I see somebody tilt forward. I do this all the time. It's very, very simple. So the only thing that I do caution is don't unlink your hands unless somebody does this, and then you go for this. What I'm going to do, just come up a little bit right now so that everybody can see my hands. I'm going to come inside his thigh on one side, and the side that my head is on, I'm going to reach down and grab the ankle. And this has to be one motion, okay? And there's a reason I'm not grabbing both ankles, because in most cases I simply can't reach. But I can reach down lower on the side my head's already on. So if I were trying to hip block him here, take him in this side, He leans forward. Now we do this, okay? And it's an easy takedown. And because you have your weight driving in this direction across his body, this is just to keep him from being able to step forward on his leg and keep his base. But I'm picking this side, I'm taking away his base, and I drive this way. So even somebody big, they're already leaning forward, they have to topple. There's nowhere to go. It's like doing a double ankle sweep type of thing. Okay? So that's all I want you to do. Come through again to the back. Have your partner just has to remember, kind of make this realistic, come forward a little bit to keep the balance. As soon as you unlock your hands, head side goes to the ankle, okay? Not the shin. You have too much strength. The ankle. The other side inside the thigh. And just drive forward. Okay? Questions on this one? I think everybody got it. Kind of easy, right? When they lean forward like that, they pretty much give it to you. The one thing I do want to make a point about is with anything, I show it from a fairly static position to demo so that everybody sees the details. But the energy that you would be getting from there wouldn't just be, now I'm leaning forward, now take me down, right? It's a fight. So in the beginning, anybody who's that intent on the physical altercation is going to be a live wire. And especially if they're bigger and stronger than you, you have to contend with that. So one of the simple additions, as you do this type of thing, from your regular training, is that the more that he is off balance, the less he can be concerned with his basic posture, right? So the first criteria, if you want to sweep somebody, is you have to disrupt their basic posture, right? If you don't want somebody to pass your guard, you deny them from ever having the base and posture to do it, right? So these are the intangible nuances that take place in a live environment versus just the scripted paint by numbers technique. So if I were to come around from here and we're in this situation, if stay up, if you have a really strong like live wire, I may not just have the luxury of saying, like, he might be very strong and well balanced, and I might not just be able to go, okay, there you are, boom, I take you down, right? However, everything changes, like if he makes himself really solid, and now all of a sudden, I move around a little bit, and then I pick the moment where he's trying to catch his balance, and then I hit it, right? His head's still forward, I'm gonna go for the same technique, but first I get him doing that, and now all of a sudden, see what happens, like, oh, boom, now I go, right? So, kind of common sense, but you just have to keep that in mind, not to get tunnel vision, but once you make your attachment, you know where you're safe. Breathe a little bit, and don't rush it, okay? I don't want to unlink my hands at the wrong time and let them get out of the clinch. Move around a little bit, and let their energy, their resistance to me set up my goal to take them down. Make sense? So we're still in the helmet and crash situation. Well, I come around, and I always want you, again, to run through your opponent. So once I come around in here like this, see here, I don't want to just hug here, because this is a lot of space for him to work with. And if he knows even a little bit of wrestling, he can re-pummel here very easily, okay? So as soon as I move him and I come around to the side, very similar to what we talked about at the back, I actually want to cinch my elbows in. And the other thing is, again, if I'm here, he could grab my head, take me for a ride. Sometimes people have no judo experience or wrestling experience, but they still instinctively would just kind of kick their leg out, and you can fall over it and wind up being on the bottom. So from here, what I do is I cinch my elbows in, okay, and I actually want to bring my hips into him, and I use my legs to disrupt his base on his legs, okay? So I come in here, and then I take him down, okay? So see that little hips in? Big difference if I'm doing this to somebody, okay, to resist their clinch, and now we're in a fight, versus that happening to me. And that's the effect you want to create on them, okay? I'm not trying to kick out their leg like that, because if they put a lot of weight on it, it's not going to work. But even if I'm way smaller than they are, if I bring my hips in and I move them, this base gets compromised. You can become essentially their center of gravity. You take that space over, and now the twist will bring them down. So it's very similar to the hip block we did from the back. It's just done from the side. And okay, from here, I bring in, and I bring him down, okay? Again, head in here, and what I'm going to be looking to do is check this arm as we hit, because this could be a punch or a grab or eyes or anything like that now, because we're not straight grappling. So they come down, I land here in preparation to bring this in, okay, and be able to exit or grapple or hit or whatever I need to do, right? But I'm looking for the opportunity to disengage if I possibly can, not just engage, because I may be in a situation where I took him down because that was my best option, but I don't want to hang out here. Like, I need to be able to get out. Does that make sense? Okay. We've gone into bubble in or crash in for the double unders. If we come in and cover the grips and we can swim in, a lot of times we can get double underhooks as well, especially if our partner is kind of, or our opponent is kind of crazy, wild, frenetic energy. But you always have to be ready that as you come in, you dig one arm under and you wind up, even if they're not trained, they still kind of have one arm under as well, and you have to kind of deal with the over-under situation. So that's okay. First thing I want to do is kind of outline a principle that some of you have seen, and this is, again, another kind of golden, like, kicks and greasy hidden jiu-jitsu nugget that you remember I first got from Henry a while ago, and I've just seen the principle like apply in all these different areas. It's awesome. So for those of you who haven't seen it, we want to run through this again. Even if you have, let's get some more reps in. So let me grab Bob actually, get somebody kind of big and strong here. So the demo here is, I like to do it as a before and after so you guys kind of get the sense of it. So we're in here, I come in and I have an over-under position. Okay, so say I've kind of crashed in, now we're in this situation, and how do I contend with somebody who, now that we're attached, is way bigger than I am and I don't have complete body control yet, right? How do I not get thrown around? How do I keep him from moving me? And how do I move him the way I want it, okay? So right now, what I want you guys to think about is, well, I'll explain it after, so let me just first illustrate this again, for those who haven't seen it. So we're in here, I'm gonna try and push Bob, he's not gonna let me do it, okay? So you can see, I'm not faking it. As hard as I'm trying, right? All my weight's going into him, he's canceling me out, okay? So, have you seen this before? No? Okay, right? So here's the cool part. Now we do it again, and I move Bob, okay? Again, try not to let me move you, and I move Bob. I move Bob, right? So did I do like a big level change, drive underneath him? No. The difference there isn't, I didn't pay Bob beforehand to take a dive for me. The difference there is basically this. You're driving in the first scenario, we're driving in, and as I try and push him using my legs and my body, he's matching my angle, and we cancel each other out. But if I do a big dramatic motion, okay, so you stop me again, okay, and then I come down here like this, you know, maybe if I have like real skill in relation to him or something, I can kind of get underneath him, like level change like a wrestler and then take him down. But he may very well, we're already attached, so he may track me, and then if he's a lot stronger than me, because there's no weight classes in street fight, right, he's throwing me around and everything. So I changed the whole dynamic simply by doing this. Okay? So I changed the whole trajectory without having to change my body position. So all I'm doing, literally, like a lot of people think like, oh, you're driving him up on his toes, like kind of judo style. No, it's literally just from here, just sagging the shoulder. So now, canceling each other out. Okay? Not canceling each other out. It's almost imperceptible to see, but if you change that little bit of alignment, now all of a sudden, where this would be stopping my opponent, now he's just a little bit lower and it kills him, okay? So I want to do this, I'm going to show this two different ways just to illustrate the principle, and I've got another way that's kind of cool, but just do that with your partners real quick so we can just understand. Once you get that, everything else will become a lot easier, okay? Now before we turn that into a takedown from the over-under situation, I want to illustrate how powerful this kind of, it's slightly different, but how powerful this principle is of your alignment. Okay, because what we just did had to do with alignment and attachment. But now we're going to talk about just the alignment itself, how changing your angle slightly of your body without any big dramatic shift, how strong that can be. So if I grab John here for a second, I'm going to go all the way down to our on the ground sitting up situation. So we have the standing in base, but now let's just do this real quick. So I'm just going to have John put his hands on my shoulders. Okay. And now if I want to do the old, sit up, like if you go off just for a second. This one, okay, classic stand in base or technical stand up. If you're retreating and if you're advancing, like how do I not use my hands to come up and do this? Right? I come up. So if John puts his hands on my shoulders, he doesn't even have to resist me a ton, but from right here, it's impossible. Okay, no way I can do it. All right, now we'll try it again. Okay, hands on my shoulders. Okay. All right. So if I stay totally square, I can't do it. But if I shift, okay, from here, I can actually bring myself up and work through that frame. Okay. One more time. Straight up. Can't do it. Now I shift. Just keep both hands on. Shift. And now I can come up. Right? Everybody try that one real quick. So now let's go into the takedown from there. Okay. So can I grab your ball? So from here, okay, I come in. We wind up in this situation. As I enter into this, I don't want to get into a big dogfight in here, so my shoulder's already drooped. It's already sat. Okay? So as soon as we come in here, I'm already moving Bob off of his base. Now, the idea here is that if he puts weight on that leg, okay, this is a very easy, highly skilled wrestler technique for me to do, is to pick up this leg and then turn it into that, Bayana, like high double. Okay? Like, it's a weak double by wrestler standards, but it works very well against most people who aren't trained. But how do I do that? When I grab this, and anybody, you don't have to have any particular skill to say, he feels me trying to pick this up, and he puts weight on it, right? And legs are always stronger than arms. So as I come in, okay, I'm immediately trying to move him off his base, right? So I move him a little bit, and I come down, and he instinctively puts weight on that leg. He resists me. So instead of trying to either move him off his base or pick the leg up, I simply do both at the same time. Okay, so resist. Okay. So I don't want to have blinders on. That's what happens. People are like, move him. Oh, let me pick it up. Oh, didn't work. Okay. Kind of kicks his leg back. Here. Move him. Now, as I move him backwards, it's easy to pick this up because there's no weight on it. Now what I want to do to finish, if we just switch angles for a second, is this. A lot of people know, it's very instinctive, okay, but the problem is it's going to put me most likely where? When we land.
In the guard.
In the guard on top of it. And as you guys know, even in street fights, people that don't know what a guard is still pull guard, right? So, or they'll fall into guard. It's instinctive to wrap your legs around somebody. So as I move Bob off of his base, I'm going to step through my back leg here and come down into a nice knee ride position, okay? So I've totally passed the guard. I come down here, make sure he can't grab my groin or eye gouge me or whatever, and now I have control. I can proceed however I want to. Either jump up out of here or hit or control and have a conversation. Okay. So one more time. Coming all the way through. So I come in, okay? Let's go keep your arms in a little bit more, over under. I come here, I'm already moving it, grab, step through. And actually, let me show you one more thing. At the end, if you're successful and your partner goes down in a heap, make sure you keep your head up. Because what I don't want to see happen is everything went really perfectly, and then you're carried down too much by your opponent's momentum. So as we come in here, okay, I move him, I pick this up, I'm through, and then I wind up getting rolled at the end. So if he goes down a little quicker than you anticipated, that's good, but make sure as you come down you fall with your hips and you keep your head up. So from here, I can always catch my base if my head is up, okay? I don't pitch forward, or he doesn't have as easy of a time to like hold on to me when I'm up like this, okay? So even if I come forward like this a little bit, I can easily back up. Make sense? Right. Let's try that. We need to have a little jab cross for everything, right? So, can I grab you again? If I'm trying this and there's a big compensation on Bob's part, right? So he's not just kind of resisting as I grab the leg, but he's like actively like driving into it. Big fights ensuing. I have to be able to steer the boat to adjust accordingly, right? We don't always get what we want in one plane. We have to have the one sets up the two sets up the three. But the main thing I want everybody to get is that this is all predicated on, once we're in this situation, we have attachment. When I'm double unders, my attachment is a bit stronger in most cases. But from here, okay, even though he's got an arm as a barrier and a potential control point himself, once I have the alignment, I create the attachment. What I want you guys to really feel in here, every time you do it, is the feeling of like when you see like gorillas, like they're so powerful, but they're also like, you know, this is our logo too, right? But they're also like very loose, like they're relaxed when they do the big gorilla hands thing, like that big display of dominance. Like they're not going like rock'em sock'em gorilla, like they're loose and heavy, like how we train people to hit. So I want you guys to kind of have that silverback posture, the standing silverback. So you're light on the balls of your feet, right? You can move easily and with good base and posture, but you're also very well balanced and kind of sandbag heavy. So that's where the little things like you see in MMA all the time. And again, I always think like when somebody's a live wire, even if they're not trained, they could pull off an MMA-ish type of movement on you just out of the heat of the moment and you overcommitting because your adrenaline's running. So you see, like MMA sometimes, where one opponent is driving the other opponent, driving the other opponent back. Like he's really driving me back, and then I like whip him, and all of a sudden he goes ass over tea kettle and falls down, and now he's on top, right? Or I'm on top of him, or vice versa, right? So what I want you guys to understand is like when you have good attachment, all those little shifts, like you can feel them coming ahead of time and you mitigate, you take like all these things that could happen when you overcommit and you distill it all down into, I only have to manage a few things, right? So this idea of like connection, I make him part of my center of gravity. So I start to move in here, and this time I go, and Bob isn't just putting some weight on the leg, he's really resisting in there, like he's kind of bearing down on that leg and trying to fight me as hard as possible. I switch. Okay? So, first one, okay, came in, I grab it, I move him off this base as he puts weight on it. Second time, he overcompensates in that direction. Okay? Now watch. This pickup becomes a knee block. And I come down. Okay, pass, pressure, pressure, head is protected. Okay? Know exactly where everything is. Okay, no strikes. And now I can turn into him and start to play my jiu-jitsu, or again, be in a position where I can talk to him, or I can start bringing the ruckus, whatever the case may be. Make sense? Everybody see that?
Can I say it one more time?
Yeah, I was going to ask. Let me switch to the ready. So Brian. So same side, kind of coming in here. I'm trying to get this, okay? But this is not letting me do it. So as I go to move him, okay, I'm moving you. Right, I can overcompensate on this leg. Moving. Don't let me pick it up. I go the other direction. Okay? Make sense? So his energy in one plane will feed you the other one. And then if he backs off of that one, you walk through him again and pick up the leg. Make sense? Take that question and show that. That's a good one for everybody. I think everybody got this really well, but I did see a little bit of, not so much getting caught up on the leg, but I saw a little bit of the around the world phenomenon. Let me explain what I mean. So Will had a question. Okay. He was doing this with John, And then as he did the takedown, he was getting it, but he was winding up here a lot. So kind of caught up on that leg, a little high. Didn't look exactly the same, didn't quite feel right, okay? So what I told him was, the principle here is exactly the same as when we got around to the back. Okay, on the duck under, and we were talking about if I get this hip block technique, once I connect here, I make his center of gravity my center of gravity. So instead of disengaging and trying to pull where he'll resist, even a bigger guy, once I do this, I go straight down. So you'll notice my elbow and rib cage orientation doesn't change, only my leg moves. And he has to fall directly into that space. There's no do-si-do going on, right? Ideally, that's much more efficient, much more powerful, and it'll be much more successful. So by the same token in here, you see the difference. Instead of spinning him and then kind of getting caught up and maybe not having quite as much success when somebody's really much stronger than you, okay? I'm moving him, he's really compensating, trying to resist, and then from here, directly into that spot. And you notice, just the natural movement here, I'm almost always going to clear that leg because my hand goes from a pickup to a knee block. So I kind of kick this in. Now I'm guard passed, and I'm already in here where I'm super safe and he can't do anything to me, okay? If he wants to hit me on the shoulder, I'm going to bite him on the eye. Everybody got the idea? So that'll clean it all up. Okay, very good. All right. So we've gone through how to deal with the different pressures. Okay, the person's up close to you, but also kind of using this posture, this long frame posture to come in when somebody's playing more the world star, like a little more engaged, ready to street fight you type of thing, not so much of a sucker punch or tackle from close in situation. We've done how to cover if somebody has their dukes up. At any point they open up, how to helmet and crash. And then we have body lock, which is basically now I'm able to get double underhooks on their body and how to work that. And now we've also gone into how to unbalance them and a couple ways to create connection and redirect them if we have over-under. So we're brought up to speed. Now I'm going to finish this whole section with another over-under where you couldn't immediately kind of take them out of their game. So now we're going to actually connect the hands in there, solidify the position. And what happens when you get into that situation a lot is that if you can't immediately kind of walk through and buckle them over, which I will go over really quickly, then what happens is it's because they start to distance their hips from you. I want to go into a few different types of responses for that. How they circle away, how they distance their hips. So I'll grab our resident Sambo outfit here with Jake. So first thing, very basic. If we come in here and again, I've helmet and crash, but we wind up over under. Okay. Now, I'm trying to move him around, let's say he's a really live wire. Okay. So I'm just going to go into this kind of gable grip position here. Right. So my underhook, for right now, there's lots of variations, but for right now, my right arm is an underhook, and my right leg is going to be forward. If I have my left arm under his arm, my left leg would be forward, okay? So from here, I'm going to go gable grip, and what I'm doing is the underhooking side is palm away, and the arm that he has underneath is going to be palm up, and the reason for that is because from here, if I wanted to circle into my dominant side, I already have my elbow raised to create space and open this up. And on this side, I'm killing his arm and keeping him from doing the same to me. Okay? So that's just part of my structure. And I do want to kind of bring this elbow down and in. And the other thing I'm doing, you'll notice, is instead of just having my head like way out here, I'm kind of doing a pinch right here between my shoulder and my head so that I'm kind of isolating his head and making it more difficult on him, okay? So we come in, again, I'm always looking to move him a little bit, and we get in here like this. Now, if he had like weak hips and I had enough momentum that once I clasped my hands, I could just kind of buckle him and bring him down, okay? I'll do that every day, and I'll show you that first, just to practice that, but then we're gonna go into more common, especially somebody who's really big and strong, where they're really trying to prevent you from doing anything that they feel you're doing, right? So I have to be able to detect that. So from here, first one, I come in, cover and crash, I feel myself in an over-under, right? He's really wild right now. So I connect to get a little extra control from here, and I cinch this in, and I'm always moving him, okay? Now what I'm gonna feel is that my hips are a little bit lower than his, and I feel like I can do this, so my hands are just gonna make sure they're down towards his tailbone, okay? Just like that. So I do that not by letting go and coming down, but if they're up high, I just slide them down a little bit, like ratchet, okay? Now from here, I'm gonna drive in, so you notice my shoulder is high and my hands are low. I'm gonna drive in and break his posture. And as I do, I'm gonna step out, 1, 2, and land right in mount. From here, my knees are pinched in tight, my toes are in tight, and now I can rise up, I can control his hands, what have you, okay? So if I do this once without Jake, okay, I'm in here like this, okay? So I get the cinch, connect, control, always moving him to unbalance him a little bit. Now from here, my head's always working. I ratchet my hands down just a little bit, so I've got high and low, okay? Push and pull. Push with the shoulder, pull with the hands, and I walk forward to break his posture, and then I step outside the leg, he's falling, outside the leg, right down into mount position, okay? So that's if you kind of lock your hands and then it becomes fairly easy, right? And then after this, we'll get into a little more difficult situation. All right. Now the next one, again, I'm kind of assuming that I've already come in, covered and crashed, right? And we wind up in a tangle here, and then we're in an over-under, okay? So as I come in here again, for whatever reason I feel his energy's really frantic, okay, so I connect. What I was just saying to everybody too is that the different grips, this is a very strong grip, but when I feel like his body's getting away from me a little bit, this is the strongest grip that I can have that's as far away as possible before my hands break open, right? So that's why this is such an effective one from here. So the first one, and this brings up why I said the underhook is palm away, and the arm that he has under, arm on that side is palm up. So I can facilitate doing this, okay? Because basically we already talked about when we had double underhooks going off to the side and doing a basic trip. And I'm going to be able to do the same thing from here. The only thing is he does have an arm under, but if I can kind of crush his arm down on that side and kill it so he can't use it effectively, then we're not neutral anymore. Just because we have an over-under doesn't mean we have to be in a neutral position. So as I come under here, I'm just going to, again, drop my level a little bit. And see that motion? So as we're moving around in here, he's being violent. Instead of trying to squeeze with my arms, I'm just going to move myself in and turn the corner. And I may have to do this a couple times. But as I get in here, you look and see where our position is. Okay? I'm off to the side, and now my head is compromised his head. Okay, I've moved from my head on the opposite side to my head on the same side as my underhook, and I'm controlling his arm. So now from here, as I come in, I can easily just bring him down. Okay? Doing that same little hip roll that we did before. I use my hips to just kind of bump his hips, unbalance him, and then I bring him down. Okay? So it's going from this side. So from here, right now, he can raise that up a lot. So I need to change that. Okay, so from here, start to bring my head into it, start to lock this elbow down, and now as I'm moving with my momentum, I start to move into this position, and now bring my hips in, and bring them straight down. Immediately as we land, I'm inside to make sure, we all know how to deal with a headlock, right? But I will make sure that he's not trying to poke me in the eye or grab me or anything. Okay, so landing control. Everybody good with that one? Good? Okay, let's see. First one, we get the position, break their posture. Okay, so walk them down. The second one, we use our arm position to open it up, to kind of ratchet ourselves around to the side. walk through their hips, and then take them where they have no base back there. What you guys are naturally starting to do, even though you weren't trying to give your partner a lot of resistance, just trying to get the movement down, is as your partner is doing it too, you're naturally doing this, right? You start to just kind of, I saw everybody like kind of getting into this position. And what happens is, because that's instinctive, you feel them starting to get off to the side, to go under your arm, and then potentially to getting close to your hips. As people start to circle away from that, okay? It's like, oh, you're going to where I have less control over you, and you're getting close to my hips, I move my hips away. And so what happened is, as we were going, it was becoming a little bit harder for you guys to do that technique because your partner was, without trying to be a jerk, they were unconsciously starting to resist just based on distance of their hips, right? So if that happens, we need to have an answer, okay? So this time, I come in, okay, and I start to come around to the side, and Jake feels that I'm getting close to his hips, so he brings his hip backwards, okay, gets him far away from me. This is why this grip, the gable grip, is very important from here, because again, like I can extend here a little bit, kind of use a cinching pressure, but I don't have to like try and use bicep curl pressure to try and keep him in. I can go out a bit as he tries to get his hips away from me. Right? So as he does that, what I'm going to do isn't so much of a judo technique from here, but more like, again, I'm cinching pressure, more of a corkscrew. Okay, so I'm not taking him for a throw, but I feel that I can't get under that armpit. It's just not working out. So instead I take advantage of all this space, and I'm going to make myself like a centrifuge and turn in a smaller radius, smaller axis than he can. Okay, so from here, I step in and I corkscrew him down. Okay, this is a very tight motion. It's not a around the world. It's not a throw over my shoulder. So there's no big do-si-do. It's right into the mat. Okay. So let me do that slow, because I don't want you guys to see. So his hips are away from me. Okay, I'm trying to go under, but as I do, he gets his hips back. Now what I'm going to do is make a very tight step in here, turn my hips, or kind of turn my my butt into his hips, but not for a full throw. Okay, just to twist him down. Okay. See how tight radius that is? And again, I wind up in this nice position where my head is protected, and I can choose how I come up to fight, to exit, or to have a conversation with him. Make sense? Okay. So I want to just illustrate this, and we're going to pretend, actually, since I just did it with you, grab you real quick. I want everybody to pretend, like make yourself as hulking strong as you can right now, like rooted, so your partner can't, once they get into that position, get your hips back, they can't just twist and take you down, right? Because I can feel it with Bob. Bob's a strong guy, right? So if I try and just go here, I feel like I'm going to throw my back out trying to do that, right? So the whole principle of connection, I basically had it, and then I broke my own connection with him. So this isn't, again, a kind of get him up and then like big throw. This is a, like I'm putting a screwdriver like down into the ground, very, very tight radius. So I'm going to move my feet in little choppy circular motions as I back into him, because I want him to have to rotate around my axis. Tight, not wide, okay? The wider I try and go, the weaker I become. So from here, his hips are back. So as I come in here, good. See, I get him down very, very tight, basically take his hips out from him, and then I slide into my position so I can finish, okay? So just try that one more time each, and I want your partner who's resisting you now kind of let you get in position, but then as they come back, I want to make yourself solid. Make your partner have to do this like technically correctly against the bigger, stronger person. Okay. Does anybody have any questions so far before we get to this last piece?
I'm sorry, on this last one, sure.
you're here. Since you said Cork's doing, what's stopping him from stepping? Do you know what I mean?
You got to step in deep enough. Good. And as you step in, you're kind of backing into him, because what happens is once you step in and your arm is pinched in tight, the small steps are to bring your butt underneath him and take his legs away.
So that first step is more of a dramatic step.
Yeah, but he's so far back, like you can aggressively come in there. And as you do it, you're basically bringing your body and your hips together, right? So you don't have to pull him. You're taking the space that your partner created to go to him. But as you start to move, you start to, like, you're not trying to trip his legs. You're just overtaking the legs and hips. Just like when we did the one from the side, right? When I'm in here, I'm not trying to just do a suplex motion. I'm coming in and I'm walking down Jake's hips. See, they lose. It's the same thing in here. So as I come in, the more that I twist, see, I go into his legs and hips and I remove them. Like I occupy the space that they occupy.
So you're
doing it in a non-dynamic way.
So your hip is actually blocking the section.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's what we missed. Thank you.
Did you feel it?
Yeah.
Right there? Okay. All right, so the last one is one of my favorites. This I've seen so many times in the UFC, professional MMA. It's awesome, and it comes off of this grip again. And the first situation where you couldn't get off to the side was your partner just kind of, they may be circling a little bit, but they're mostly just concerned with backing their hips away. This one is when your partner is aggressively circling away, okay? See the difference kind of between like doing this, where I may turn a little bit. This is, they feel you going underneath, right? And now they're aggressively circling away. So what happens is, I'm going to use this arm position two different ways. So remember I said, this side is to open, so I can walk that way. The other side is to lock down, okay? So I want to explore the applications, because so far everything's been predicated on going to the underhook side, okay? Now in this one, a lot of times is I come in and like we're doing this, so I come into this position. As I'm moving Jake back, right, he's going to start to circle. He doesn't like it, so watch if I slow everything down. He's moving in a circle. What beats a circular movement? Straight line, okay? So he's moving in a circle. I'm trying to come underneath, but look, he's bringing his other side to me. So I'm going to take a straight line and cut him off. Look. See it right here. So I'm basically in a horse stance right now. I stopped circling and I went, as he brought his right leg towards me, I step right here behind it. And then look what happens. My arms are already in this position. I lock down, and now I just lean. Right into that position, okay? So that's slow. If I do it kind of quickly, good. So I'm coming in, sway, circling, okay, right through. Same finish, okay? So let me do that once without Jake. Can you see it? Good, so I come in, I feel the arm underneath, I'm in an over-under. Okay, he's kind of wild, so I lock. Now as I'm starting to always instinctively go towards the underhook, I feel him circling away. So I step perpendicular to his body, and the moment that I step, my elbow clasps down. And then I just fall into that space, and he has nowhere to go, okay? Because my leg is here. He's gonna go straight down to the mat at that point. Does that make sense? He can't put his arm out because this is over, right? Taking away his base. It's just great because the dramatic effort that your opponent will give you to deny the one angle will just easily set up the other one. Which, if you think about it, has been a recurring theme from all these combos that we've done. Simple takedown combinations. I force one avenue, really make you respond, the other presents itself. Right? Okay, let's go. Before we do that last drill, let me just make sure the concept is completely laid out. Everybody's 100% clear in this last piece. So we just finished on a few possibilities for an over-under position where you clasp your hands to get a little more control, okay? Because you feel like your partner's, you're not able to just sort of like walk through and control their hips. You've got connection, but you're trying to lock them in. So, Jake, can I grab you one more time? So once we wind up in this situation, okay, I've already covered distance, I've covered and crashed, I come in, okay, remember, main thing is your base. I don't want to wrestle him, arms versus body. I want to be connection point, right? So make him part of my body so I can kind of chill and use as little energy as possible, especially if he's bigger or stronger. I want to have the gable grip, palm away, always on the underhook side. Other side is palm up, so the palm towards me so that I can help facilitate this. Open up the underhook, collapse his underhook so that we're not even anymore, even though on paper we have an even position. Also, using my head a little bit if I can, right? Especially if we get into a real close in approximate, I don't immediately get my angle. Okay, anything I can do to kind of reduce his ability to move and control him. So I can start to cinch my arms in, so I'm using left bicep and head fight a little bit. But always from here, my first thing is, if I can break his posture, I'll do it. So if he isn't too aggressively separating his hips from me, then if I can walk him down, I'll do that. And to do that, I need to go high and low. So the first one we did was, from this position, ratchet my hands down a little bit towards his tailbone. So now my shoulder's high, my hands are low, and I break his posture, and I walk him down nice and tight, okay? That was the first one. If I feel like he's allowing me to, okay, out of our motion, I'll also always go towards the underhook side. So from the same side, okay, I can also go like this, especially if I feel like I can't just walk him down, but I can open this up, right? Now I get in here. Again, elbows are cinching, not trying to squeeze with biceps, because if I squeeze, you'll see that his right arm can actually re-engage and he can turn into me easy. But if I come in here, okay, now I can just come in and walk his hips down and take him down, okay? Very similar to the one we did from the double underhook body lock. The only difference is his arm is trapped inside. As I come in for that, always circling here, okay, he gets his hips back away from me. And then this is where I step in to the corkscrew, and my hips and legs overtake his hips and legs. And the last one is not so much just getting his hips away, but actually circling away. And so I'm going to allow his motion to kill me from going to the underhook side to give me a shortcut to the other side and take him down. Okay? So basically one initial position, connection, that tells me what I can do. Everything's the path of least resistance is just use your actual lock on the body to just break his posture. If you can do that, you're golden, right? You go right into that. Next best thing, okay, is so he's resisting me, okay, I go off to the side. Then he can either bring his hips back or circle. And that's what I'm going to do, okay? So I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes each to just run through that as a drill. Kind of start out from this position. As your partner opens up, you help him crash. Come into the over-under, right? Even if you need to jostle around a little bit. Hand connection, and then your partner's going to give you those different energies. And I want you to try and get through it all of them, right? But mix them up at random now.